Just a warning, this is actually bad. So just a disclaimer, brace yourself for what's coming. All credit right now goes to Branch Off Bush, who I'll link in the description. He's much
Branch Off Bush. So I've seen this guy in my comments a few times. So I'm curious to see what he's found or what he has to say.
more knowledgeable than I am about computers, game development, and coding, and his explanation is incredibly in-depth and precise. However, it's a little difficult to understand for an everyday average gamer, so I'm going to simplify and relay this information to you in a way where it's widely accessible. Branch Off Bush has been trying to get the attention of the mainstream Call of Duty community for a while, but it was clear we weren't ready to hear the information yet. This tweet shows him tagging a bunch of larger creators in the Call of Duty community, telling them that he helped a government agency expose the fact that Activision executes software that has unrestricted access to your computer's camera. But it's a lot more than just that. This is going to expose a lot of what Activision is doing behind
Well, that would be quite unnerving if that's the case. I mean, we'll see what he found here.
the scenes, not just with manipulating the game, but also with your computer or console as well. I'm going to teach some complex computer things here in a short time, so pay attention and get ready to get rocked. We've never outed anything like this before. The first thing I need to explain is something called a DLL file. DLL stands for Dynamic Link Library, and it is, put very simply, a file that runs in the background of your computer that contains code that multiple programs can access at the same time. For example, if a program needs to access your camera, like Zoom or Skype, instead of the developers needing to write code within that software to control your camera, they can instead tell the software to access a DLL file that is already on your computer to access the video feed of your camera.
Yeah, I mean, so you're just going to have like common code that's accessible exactly how he said, so that you're not directly interfacing with the like peripheral itself. You're interfacing with this DLL file, which does a lot of the work under the hood for you, so you're not like reinventing the wheel, so to speak. And one thing to note, that DLL files, I'm not like a Windows expert, but I'm pretty sure DLL files are exclusive to Windows. So on other operating systems like Linux and like OS X, like Apple, it would be like a different, it's the same kind of thing being used, but it's a different file extension and probably different conventions. So when you're looking at DLL files, like, so if they extracted some of the files from the actual game, I'm assuming they were looking at a Windows version of the game. Since it's, interfacing with the DLL files.
It's basically a shortcut for developers. Instead of recoding functions that your computer can already do, they just tell the software to access a toolbox of code that is already capable of doing that. In the simplest terms possible, why build a hammer from scratch with your own resources when you can just reach into your toolbox and pull one out? This being
essentially, like, don't reinvent the wheel kind of thing.
said, Branch Off Bush, when helping this government agency find out what Activision was up to behind the scenes, used software that detects what DLL files a certain program was accessing while it was running. First, he tested this software on Black Ops 1 while playing combat training. He found that it accessed only a single suspicious DLL file called ntdll.dll. Now, bear with me here. Black Ops 1 was designed to run on both 32 and 64-bit systems, or newer and
So I would say initially my first reaction is like, a game accessing DLL files in it of itself is not a bad thing, because it probably needs to do that. Like, it needs to do that to like interface with, for example, like your graphics card or anything like that. If it's drawing stuff on if it's using your graphics card to render graphics, like, it needs to interface with that somehow. Then there's like memory management and how the game is storing memory on your computer, so it's going to need to interface with those sort of things. But yeah, I think it depends on which DLL files are being accessed. Because if it's accessing one that is a camera, for example, it's like, well, why does it need to be accessing that one? So I'll be curious to see like when he gets into like which DLL files are being accessed. But I would say inherently it's not a bad thing. It's just suspicious if it's accessing ones that you think it probably shouldn't be accessing, or it's like, well, why is it accessing that one? Like, why does it need access to my camera?
older systems at the same time. But since Black Ops 1 was also compatible with Windows XP, an older operating system, the game was accessing this DLL file in order to utilize the resources necessary to translate the game over to a 64-bit system from a 32-bit origin. Put simply, Call of Duty was accessing this DLL file present in Windows in order to make an older game compatible on a newer system. So it is not suspicious activity.
Yeah.
The game
so it's like, once again, it's a use that's okay, that makes sense, right? It's trying to do multi-platform support, so it needs to access that DLL file for like converting between 32-bit and 64-bit operating systems. So in that sense, yeah, that would make sense. I mean, still there could be a use case where it's doing something malicious, right? But for the most part, we would assume that, okay, that's a fair use, or that makes kind of intuitive sense to me.
Simply requires code that Windows already possessed so that the devs didn't need to code their own translation software. Rather, they pulled from the DLL toolbox that already existed on Windows. So that was a total mouthful, but it sets up the absolute bombshell that I'm about to drop next. When using the same software that detects what DLL files a certain program is potentially utilizing maliciously, but this time on Modern Warfare 3 2023, the software found something that would shock you. The first list of utilized DLLs when Black Ops 1 was investigated was this big. Only 6 DLL files were utilized by Black Ops 1, and none were suspicious or malicious. When the software was run on Modern Warfare 3 2023, the list was this big. Holy smokes.
So once again, I would still say my first gut reaction. So I'm not once again, I'm by no means a Windows systems admin expert. So feel free to correct me on like anything in regards to this topic. But I would say this in of itself, it's not suspicious because it's probably a more complex game that might require more complex interactions with the DLL files on your system, and just to get the game up and running. So that I would say is not suspicious. It's just, yeah, once we look into these DLL files, are there ones that are being accessed that are kind of like, why is it being accessed? So we'll see. I see he has one highlighted here.
For context, and not just because Black Ops 6 is more modern, bro, XDefiant uses, you guessed it, 0 DLLs when it was tested with the same software.
So that's interesting to me. I would be curious to know how it's doing that, because to my knowledge, like, it would have to be accessed. I mean, maybe it doesn't, but I would imagine it would most likely be interfacing with some sort of DLLs to like talk to your like to the memory on your computer and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm curious to know how it came to be 0 DLLs, if that's even possible.
The game accesses a lot of your computer's functionality.
Unless they're like writing custom software that's directly interfacing and not even using these DLLs. If they're writing like custom DLLs maybe or something, that could be a scenario. But that would be, I feel like that would be like extreme overkill. Like, why not just use what's already in place kind of thing?
But hold on, there's one in particular that stands out from the rest. While I will grant that a lot of these files are innocent, this one right here is cause for great alarm. nvcamera64.dll. Whoa. Now we're getting somewhere. Call of Duty is using files in your computer that are designed to access your camera's video feed, even when you don't have a webcam active.
Okay, so what's the name of that DLL file? We can do some research here, because I actually don't know off the top of my head what this DLL file is. But the first thing is okay, it's got camera in the name, so that's kind of scary. But if I was to go to like ChatGPT, we can maybe look up and see what this DLL file is doing. So what is it like? nvcamera.dll. So I'm just going to look up this and see what it does and what it's associated with. File is typically associated with NVIDIA graphics used by a camera or video-related features. Game stream for streaming games. Video tools, capturing screenshots and videos. Bluetooth. Okay, so to my knowledge, once again, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not, once again, a Windows DLL expert here. But it seems like this would not be accessing your camera, but it's more so accessing like tools for allowing for screen capture, video capture, and potentially like streaming. And if that's the case, I would ask, like, does Black Ops 6 have like the capability to do in-game screenshots or anything like that, or like saving of video files, like for clips? Because that could make sense as to why it would be accessing this DLL to do stuff in regards to like screen capture. Let me ask it. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT if this interfaces with like your webcam at all. One second. Okay, it does not directly interface with the webcam. No, it's standard webcam, but it can relate to webcam-like features in certain contexts. Game streaming. I might interact with webcam inputs, enhanced or supplied. So it's interesting. I mean, NVIDIA AI-powered video. So I'm just reading over this. Features like background blur. So off the like rip, I would say it seems that this would not be the driver that would be interacted with if you were dealing with like the webcam peripheral on your computer. That's my first gut reaction, and that this would be more so for screen capture and video capture, which doesn't seem too suspicious at first glance, but I could be wrong. So please, anyone who's more well versed in Windows in the Windows domain, correct me if I'm wrong. And even if this DLL file wasn't problematic within and of itself, it doesn't mean that there's not other DLL files that are being accessed that are doing nefarious things, right? Well, let's just get back into it and keep seeing what he says.
Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Call of Duty is using files in your computer that are designed to access your camera's video feed, even when you don't have a webcam active. Call of Duty.
So once again, that's under the assumption that that DLL file is actually capable of interfacing with the webcam, and it's not doing the other stuff that we were just talking about with like screenshots and like video capture.
Immediately on startup has direct access to your.
But it does stand that it is using that DLL file. So yeah, when the application starts up, like it is accessing that piece of functionality, whatever it may be.
Camera, despite the game and anti-cheat not at all requiring camera access. Not a single.
So I would once again ask the question, does the game have screenshot or video capture capability? And even if it doesn't, there could be some like debug tools that the developers have been using when developing the game to allow them to take screenshots and video capture, like for when they're coding stuff. If they want to quickly debug something and have like a debug video that can maybe be uploaded somewhere automatically. So that could be another use case here. But the easy answer would just be, does Black Ops 6 have screenshot capability or video capture capability for like clips and stuff like that? Because if so, that would be my first gut reaction as to what this DLL file is being used for. So yeah, we'll see.
Single function within Call of Duty requires such a thing.
And one final point is there was like the other videos we saw that Call of Duty is like still running in the background even after you close it out. So whatever, I would be curious to know if this DLL file is like still being accessed while you think the game's closed out, but it's still running in the background. That could also be another interesting point to think about.
To be active. So why is it active? Well, look no further than this Activision owned and created patent. Methods and systems to modify a two-dimensional facial image to increase dimensional depth and generate a facial image that appears three-dimensional. Why on God's green earth does this patent need to exist? The scariest part is that this image included in the patent's resources displays a player's face overlaid over their gameplay. The footnote that describes this image reads as the following. In embodiments, the expressions/reactions of movements of image 1504, which is this image right here, reflect the user's expressions/reactions and movements in real time. This software is capable of using your camera to read and analyze your reactions and emotions, and the game is also confirmed to be accessing your camera as soon as the game starts up. But then we have to ask, why is Call of Duty getting access to your camera the moment the game boots up? It's not to design a 3D model of your face for graphic design purposes, or maybe it is, I don't know. But what other things is Activision?
Yeah, so I would say there's a lot here. So like first of all, that technology 100% already exists, like the 2D to like 3D whatever model face scanning. I mean, you see that everywhere. Like when you log into your phone, you're using the like Face ID to log into your phone. You have TikTok and Instagram filters that can track your face and do a lot of interesting things in real time with your, with your face and apply filters. So there's all of that is already in place. There's code to do that, to be able to do that, which means that it's very easy to categorize the data that's being captured. What that means, and I have a huge suspicion, this is like a side note, that TikTok is already doing this. Like if you give TikTok access to your camera, I have a theory that they are tracking your face while you're watching the videos to see how you're reacting. Because all it would just be is, okay, we're already able to capture that data. We know that that's possible. It would just be a matter of categorizing the state of the viewer, or in Call of Duty's sense, the case or the state of the player. Like, okay, are they happy? Are they sad? Are they indifferent? Do they think something's funny? Are they focused, serious, et cetera, et cetera? So it's just a matter of categorizing that. And then based on that categorization, it's just another parameter to feed into any other algorithm that you want. So in TikTok's case, it could be like, I don't know, they'll show you a video of like a Donald Trump meme or something, and then they can analyze your face to see, are you laughing at the meme? Are you serious? Are you focused? Like, do you look upset? Et cetera, et cetera. And then that combined with like all the other metrics of how long were you watching the video? Did you swipe away from the video and then come back to the video? Did you click into the comments section? Did you comment on the video? Did you heart the video? Did you share the video? Like all of that stuff, it's just another metric to be included to overall customize like what data it thinks that you like. So let's say you laugh at the meme, it might flag you as a person that's like, okay, this person has a sense of humor towards political memes in this direction. So maybe let's feed them more content and see how they react. Now, in Call of Duty's sense, it would be the same kind of thing of, well, how do we plug that into Call of Duty, right? So if you're tracking the face of a player, you can tell if they're upset, laughing, having a good time, like while they're playing the game, like they're getting steamrolled in a game, and you can see that they're visibly getting upset by their face. And then combine that together with the other metrics of how they're performing and so on and so forth. You could kind of build a profile of the player and then just do whatever you want with that. So it's interesting to think about. It's definitely very, very possible. And it's already a lot of this technology, in my opinion, definitely already exists in terms of tracking your face now. And then I think personally it's being used in other platforms like TikTok for the whole like categorization of your emotional state while you're interacting with the platform. Anyways, let's get back to it.
Created or perhaps patented that would need camera access in order to get the most benefit out of it? Well, we return once again to one of our favorite patents, system and method for driving microtransactions in multiplayer video games. And here is where I drop the bombshell. We can see right here in this patent that Activision has designed a system that does a few things by reading the emotional state of a player using visuals. Firstly, in this section right here, it reads, examples of quality factors include, without limitation, a player quitting a match or gameplay session while other players are still playing, indicating satisfaction, blah, 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 until we get right here. A player engagement factor, e.g. a speed of player input, a level of focus as determined from camera peripherals, etc., where greater engagement may indicate greater satisfaction. So in this patent, a camera is used to analyze the emotional state of a player. Another section reads, the quality factors may include, for example, a duration of a gameplay session, e.g. via analysis of player historical data, player psychological state, e.g. frustration level, and or other information. So
yeah, and like you can combine all like you can combine the historical records. So every time they're tracking the state, they can like add it to like a historical record, so they can pull that up to see, okay, up until this point, what is the like historical categorization of this player, as well as the current state of how they're feeling in the moment, and they can combine those things together and once again build a real-time profile. And once again, that real-time profile will then be added to the historical record moving forward, and so on and so forth. So they can get like a good level of confidence of how you are as a player, like what emotional state you're in, and then they can do that to drive, I mean, whatever they want, really. And this is the thing that I've always thought is the most suspicious, is just the fact that these patents even exist. Like, regardless of if you look at the code or not, they obviously have a very clear intention of what they want to do. Like, why else would they be patenting this kind of stuff? Like these kind of like algorithms, whether they're implemented or not, you can very clearly see that this is what they want to try to achieve, even if they haven't achieved it yet. Obviously, I think that they have achieved it, or they're close to achieving it, right? Or in the process of like fine tuning it. So the patents to me have always been like I don't know, like the smoking gun, right, so to speak. It's just extremely suspicious to me.
Activision has created methods and systems that read player emotions in order to drive microtransactions and rig the matchmaking. And the best part? The patent that creates 3D facial images out of 2D images is cited within the microtransaction patent. And they have an AI that listens to your microphone in game chat, so the game has unrestricted camera access, can see your face and hear your voice without you giving them permission to see your face or hear your voice outside of voice chat. Unless somewhere in the terms of service there is a loophole that we sign up to, which I wouldn't be too surprised about, this is really bad.
Yeah, and then first, so if we assume the DLL thing is indeed accessing your camera and it's not like just the screenshot stuff, so I'm open to being corrected on that, but we'll just assume that it is the case. The scary thing also is not just like while you're playing the game, are they able to track your face, your voice, and like what you're saying? And then these days, obviously, there's like the language learning model, so they can very easily interpret what it is you are saying, as well as all the other metrics of like in-game, like how you're performing and stuff like that. That's obviously very terrifying, but it's also scary to think about, like, if the app is still running after you close it out, like is like the access to your camera and microphone, et cetera, is that still running in the background? Because if it is, that means if you close out of the application, it could be potentially accessing your microphone and camera while you're away, aka listening into your conversations or watching you if your camera's pointed at like a high traffic area in your house. They could see all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just a potential, right? I'm not saying it is doing that. I'm just saying that is a potential if these things are being accessed in real time while the application is still running in the background because you've given it permission to do so. So you're just kind of trusting that the code is, not doing anything crazy. Obviously, that would probably be highly illegal, but possible, I guess, is what we're trying to strive for here. Like, is it possible or not?
Call of Duty has camera access as soon as the game starts up, and
But once again,
Activision
the guy who found this, I think his name. Sorry, I forgot your name, bro. Is it Branch on Bush? Branch off Bush. I would love to. You can comment on my video if you end up watching this. Like just more information about this DLL file. Just if you know that it for sure is accessing the like peripheral, like the webcam peripheral, or if it's only accessing like screenshot, video capture kind of stuff. I would love to hear more on that one.
has patents that suggest that a camera can be used in-game to measure your engagement levels and do whatever else it wants to do. Remember, when Branch Off Bush did this test with XDefiant, no DLL files were pulled at all, meaning the game wasn't using anything on the system to run the game, and the game was executing all of its own unique code.
That's also interesting to me. I would love to hear more about that one as well, because that's like shocking to me that the game isn't making use of any of those, because to me that implies they're writing their own custom DLLs or they're directly interfacing with hardware in a different way, which I wouldn't even have thought that was possible. I would have thought no matter what tool you're using, it's like an abstraction level up here maybe that's ultimately interfacing with the DLL files. So I would be curious to know more about that as well.
Quite interesting. XDefiant, a game without manipulative matchmaking and a transparent dev team, doesn't use any DLL processes, not one, nor does it do any other kind of engagement measurement. But then we get to Call of Duty, where we can feel something is quite off about the game, and we suddenly discover the game has unrestricted camera feed access, as well as patents about reading player emotions for engagement, that cites a patent that uses a camera to model a 3D face out of a 2D image.
Yeah, so once again, this is always what's going to be the most suspicious to me, is all of these patents and how they're literally saying like this is what we are trying to achieve, and then this is the thing we are trying to patent, and it's like going into all of these technologies in detail. Like I don't even think you need to look any further like into the code. I mean, obviously you would need to look at the code to see like, okay, is it actually doing the thing that is being claimed? But in general, you can see what their intentions are, and there's just the overall feel and vibe that people have in the community of some of the stuff. You can just kind of feel that it's happening. Maybe not in regards to the camera stuff, but at least in regards to like skill-based matchmaking or skill-based damage and things like that. So I think there's always a metric of you do need to take in anecdotal evidence and experience, or anecdotal just experience of people, and have that be another factor in the model for assessing if this kind of stuff is even happening.
I wonder what they could be trying to do. But this next patent seals the deal. May I present to you methods and systems for continuing to execute a simulation after processing resources go offline. Already the name of this patent is incredibly off-putting, but then you read into what it's capable of doing, and you start to really question what's going on. Get ready for this one. A system and method is provided that simulates gameplay of non-player characters, NPCs, distributed across networked end-user devices. The system may identify end-user devices that are connected to the system through a network and are available to participate in a simulation in which each participating end-user device is provided with one or more NPCs to be executed. An end-user device may be available to participate when it has sufficient computing capacity, such as when in an idle or standby state. As such, the system may leverage spare computing capacity of networked end-user devices to execute NPCs at networked end-user devices during a simulation. In this manner, the behavior of an NPC may be tested using real-world connections that may affect gameplay, such as network connection quality, user-to-user game engine coordination and data exchanges, and or other real-world conditions associated with networked end-user devices.
So this is interesting. This seems like, though, I mean, the first reason I think that they would do this is it seems like if you step away from your computer but the game's still running, they might deem you as, okay, he's in an idle state, so we can use his computer's resources because our application's still running. So we're going to use them. We're going to fire off code under the hood that's maybe doing like some sort of NPC simulation, so that it probably can contest your network connectivity or something like that to the game, and then see how it's affecting the system, even though you're not actually online. So they might be doing it for like testing purposes and things like that. But it is very interesting because it's basically stuff that you are agreeing to probably when you download the game. So the legality of this is probably not illegal because you are probably signing a terms of service that says that you are allowing this application to run on your PC and do these sort of things. So that's the whole other side point. But Yeah, it's probably taking your computer's resources, firing off code while you're in an idle state. I don't know why they would be. The only thing I can think of, yeah, is just testing like scenarios where you want to see how the connection is from that user's. Because like normally you are going to be playing from the connection in the network that you're on, so it might just be done to kind of simulate that more and add that load to the overall server, just to see how the server's performing, and use that as like an extra metric. And then there's something else I think about, like training NPCs, so that'll be fun to look at and see. But it seems like it's simulating as if you were connected, like how would it affect our system kind of thing, just so they can use that for testing and in quote unquote improving their overall product, as opposed to relying on you playing the game, like so they could do that while you're away from the game. So I mean, there is a positive potential benefit there, but it is a little bit kind of like,
That's wicked complex, but this is essentially what is called a botnet, which is a computer virus, which is a felony. For those of you who don't know, botnets are a network of computers that have been artificially connected by malware or a virus. Within a botnet, the combined computing power of every computer is used to more efficiently perform fraudulent activity, such as generate more spam emails, DDoS a website, steal data, mine cryptocurrency, or spread malware to link even more systems into the.
Yeah, so like what it's doing is it's getting on your PC. So normally with botnet type stuff, it's getting on your PC, and it's going to be using your resources in combination with other people's resources that have this like virus installed to do some sort of nefarious activity. But in this case, I don't know if it would be considered illegal, just because they probably have a use case for it that's considered legal by, oh, we're just doing this to test like the stability of our app platform, as if that user was connected, and we want to run some tests from their network, like as they are connecting to our server. So there could be like a positive use case for it. And once again, you're probably like agreeing to it in some terms of service somewhere, to where I don't know if it would be considered illegal, but it has the potential to be worrisome if the code that's being fired off is not like friendly. Which obviously a lot of people don't have the best impression of Activision in mind when they think of the code that they're running on their computers.
Put simply, a botnet is a virus that links multiple computers together and uses their combined computing power to more efficiently perform whatever task the controller wants them to do. It's hijacking computers as zombie batteries for a shady operation. That being said, this patent looks like they simply patented a botnet, which again is an illegal virus that hijacks your computer's processing power, because it's networking computers that have Call of Duty together in order to run simulations, theoretically. If we
Yeah, so once again, I don't think that's the thing we have to check about, is I don't think it's inherently illegal. It would just be, it would fall into the category of like, well, I didn't know that was happening, but it's like, well, you signed the terms of agreement that said that they're gonna like you're allowing this application to run on your computer, and do these kinds of things. And then that combined with, once again, if they were to like go to court with this, they would probably just say like, well, we're not doing anything malicious, like we're not like DDoSing other application endpoints with it, like with this kind of thing in place. We're just doing it to test our own systems and make sure everything's running smoothly with like a simulated environment as if that user was connected. So yeah, I mean, it's just like we'd have to see kind of thing. It's an interesting piece of data. So it's just another data point to consider for sure.
Reference another patent, it essentially describes how Network is creating methods to make AI NPC players that are indistinguishable from real human beings. This is another favorite patent of mine. This is incredibly useful to them, because in order to toss engaging matches, they now don't have to rely on finding the right human being for the job.
That is another interesting one that we didn't talk about. That's what I was mentioning before, is they could be doing this like, so after they build, like let's say they build like a profile of how you play, like they have all the data of like your win rate, your accuracy, all of that kind of stuff, then they could potentially like simulate a player that's like an NPC that is playing as you from your network connection, just for, once again, for their perspective, for testing their environment, to see how your connectivity is, to see how it affects other people. But it also acts as like a, it could be that you, or like an NPC based off of you, is being placed in somebody else's game as like an AI bot, just in case, like in the event that there's not that many players playing or something. You could like artificially fluff the games with bots to make the user experience a little bit quote unquote better, so that they're like able to find games faster and things like that. So that is probably also what could be potentially happening here.
They can simply put you into a match that is perfectly tailored for your engagement, and you have no idea it's actually a simulation with no real human beings. Having recently apparently proved that AI bots are now in COD, you can see where I'm going with this. And just recently, we've discovered that on Steam, the game doesn't close properly. It has processes that stay open once you quit. You think something might be going on here? These two patents together, executing a simulation when resources go offline to train NPCs in real-world conditions, and creating NPCs that are indistinguishable from human beings, we can start to assemble the puzzle pieces. And it's not pretty.
Yeah, so to me, once again, it just seems like they would be taking people who are idle and then spinning up like a NPC bot, probably based off of that user profile potentially, or maybe they have like a default custom profile, and then using that to like as a player in other people's games to speed up the matchmaking of other people's games, and also to test their connectivity and to test their systems, like their load, like if there was a so and so player spinning up from your your network connecting into their game. So that's probably what they're doing, or that could be a hunch in that direction.
Using your computer, yes, yours, to train NPC AI players on the side while you're not even in the game, i.e., while your processing resources go offline. And the same can be probably said for consoles as well. It's using your computer's processing power and resources in the background in order to train AI bots that play Call of Duty. And
So the thing that would come down to this, though, is do you as a player care that that's happening? I think the one that I would definitely care that's happening is if it's like accessing my camera and my microphone. That 100%, I would be like, okay, that's kind of suspect and not cool. But for this one, that's an interesting topic of like, do I care that it's using my profile to train like a model off of me to test their system kind of thing? Like, honestly, I probably wouldn't really give a crap. I just don't really care as long as it's not affecting like my PC and my performance. Like if I was interacting, let's say I'm on my computer and I'm trying to do other stuff, but then it's chewing up my resources. Yeah, then I would care, obviously. So that I could say from that perspective, it's problematic, especially if it's running in the background after you close the game out, because like more, maybe people who aren't as familiar with, going into the task manager and manually closing out of these things, they might be none the wiser. Like they're going to exit out of the game. They're going to think the game is, exited out of, but it could be running in the background still, chewing up their resources. So yeah, from that perspective, I would say it's not really good. But other than that, like if I was me personally, I would just say I don't really have a problem with the idea of, hey, I'm offline right now. You feel free to train a bot off of me. Like to me, that's not a big deal. But to others, I could see they just wouldn't like that. Once again, other than the fact that if it's chewing up resources on my computer and wearing down my computer, or like causing performance issues while I'm trying to use my computer, or like stuff like that, that would be problematic.
Connected to other players' PCs as well through the network they've created. At least that's what the patent details. It networks a bunch of computers that have COD installed together, then uses that processing power to run simulations with these NPC bots so that they can learn how to appear more indistinguishable from human beings. They're using the processing power of you.
So like that's a whole separate concept. Once again, do you guys care about that? Because I'm trying to think. I mean, it makes it less. It will be one more step in the direction of like soullessness. Like the game will become more soulless. Like if you're playing in a lobby full of bots, it's just not as much fun, because like from the mental perspective of like, oh, when I'm playing with people, it feels like I'm a part of a community. That's always a huge aspect of gaming, and you'll kind of lose out on that if you think like, am I playing with humans right now, or am I playing with bots? But from like a fun perspective, if we were to take the community aspect out, I mean, it could also be a good thing. Like if you're in a game and it's challenging you in a way that like you would also be challenged in a game full of real people, I don't see a problem with that inherently. Like that still could make a fun game. That's a fun experience, but you would lose out on the community aspect, especially if like you're not being transparent as a game or an application, to where players are jumping into games and they're not sure if they're in games with AI bots or with people, or if it's a mix. So I think a best of both worlds solution that they could try to do is have like two separate matchmaking. One matchmaking for, okay, this matchmaking is guaranteed to have humans in it, only humans. And then this other matchmaking is one that's filled with AI bots, just to have that distinction there. Because like once again, I queue up Black Ops 2 sometimes, and I'll go into like offline mode and play against those like old school bots. And I love doing that. That's fun for me. So I can imagine it would also be fun having this kind of feature as well. But I would like to opt into it so I know that I'm playing with bots or not. because it's not fun playing in a game where you think you're doing well against other humans, only to find out that you've just been playing bots the entire time.
Your computer and your console without you knowing to train their own NPC bots to further perpetuate the manipulative nature of the game and turn it even more into the Matrix. And I'll throw in one more thing for you. What if this AI player your PC is being used to train is almost an exact one-to-one copy of how you play? Here's a detail other creators have missed. Having access to the NVCamera64.dll doesn't only mean your webcam. It means it has access to the contents of your screen. So that means when you're playing, some kind of software within Call of Duty is requesting to have access to the actual video feed of your monitor. Does that mean that it's gathering gameplay data from your perspective in order to train an AI version of you?
Yeah, and I guess that's another thing we didn't even touch on that's even more suspicious about that specific DLL file is if it's so even if it's not accessing the webcam, let's pretend it's not accessing the webcam for a second, and it's only accessing like the capabilities for screen recording, screen capture. Like that's still very suspicious because is that only in the context of the game, or is it like if I hit escape key and let's pretend I have Call of Duty running in the background here, is it firing off stuff that allows it to control what I see on my monitor right now, aka like what I'm looking at in my browser, the stuff I'm searching, my chat GPT history, like everything, right? Financial stuff, if you're logging into like a bank account, like that would be kind of suspicious as well. So I would have to be more well versed once again on Windows DLLs and the extent of how much they can access on your like system, and when applications are making use of those DLLs, like the extent of what they have access to. But just something that's something I didn't think about in the beginning because it's also just a suspect in that regard.
It's not out of the question considering what Activision has patented and what Activision is shown to do by accessing your video feed. There's no way to 1000% prove this just yet, but the fact they've patented a botnet, which is a system that is literally a felony, goes to show that they maybe are.
So once again, I think we have to check on that one. Like the whole a botnet for malicious purposes, okay, that's felony, right? But in this context, it might be okay just because they're using it for the quote unquote improvement of their application. And it might be something that you've signed up for in the terms of service. So there might be like a loophole there to where it's not technically illegal because it's not deemed as doing something nefarious or like over the top. Although it would still be kind of like a little bit shady to not like disclose that information to the user, like in big bold text. Hey, we're going to be using your PC while you're idle to perform certain tasks that help improve our system, kind of thing, like, or at least like allowing you to opt into that or not. That would be kind of, maybe that's what they would need to do.
Aren't the most ethical company in the world.
Yeah,
However,
it's almost more of like an ethical question. There you go. Versus legality. It's ethics versus legality, morality versus legality, kind of thing. Morally, a little suspect. Legally, not sure.
Have proved that Call of Duty gets access to your camera even when there isn't one connected, which suggests that it's actually watching your screen and your gameplay, and there's no other reason to access the camera unless we relay it back to the patents that state that it has access to your camera, reads your emotions, and manipulates matchmaking and gameplay for the sake of making as much money as possible. We get a case that is incredibly suspicious. And the only counter argument is one of pure cognitive dissonance. This is bad. And it's undeniable. Call of Duty doesn't need access to your camera for the gameplay to function properly, but for some reason, it's accessing your camera anyways as soon as the game boots up. And it's literally been proven that it does. And that should terrify you. Along with the botnet patent, we should be very scared of what's coming next. This game can read our facial expressions and is potentially using our computer's computing resources to train AI NPCs that they're going to toss into the matchmaking to make the game the most manipulative, dopamine drip-feeding Matrix simulator we've ever experienced in gaming. And all the naysayers are just going to let it happen because it sounds too much like a conspiracy. You'll be thanking people like Branchoff Bush and me and Blame Truth years from now if Activision gets outed for doing these things and they shut it down. But that's all I got for now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and go subscribe to Branchoff Bush. He's got crazy information on.
Yeah, Branchoff Bush. He's usually in my comments and he usually has a lot of good things to say. So definitely go check out his channel and subscribe to him if you haven't. Or just feel free to interact with him in the comment section if you ever see him.
His channel. I'm Prime Pete. Be safe out there and take it easy.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a very interesting video. A lot of interesting points. I would just once again want to be corrected, or like feel free to let me know on those window DLL files, like the specificity of what they're actually accessing in terms of like the camera peripherals or not. But beside all that, there's just an interesting point there of, you as a consumer are agreeing and opting into things like these games, and you're giving them permission to do stuff on your system by downloading these applications. I know obviously you get the fair exchange of, okay, you get to play a game that you enjoy, but it does always open the room for allowing these companies to like train AI models or do whatever it is that they want, whether it's for nefarious activity or not. I mean, another good example of this is like, for example, like Google Photos, right? Or any of these cloud platforms that allow you to store your photos. When you store your photos on those platforms, you are giving away your rights almost to your likeness in terms of AI, because they're training AI on your face and all of your friends and family's faces so that they can categorize the photos. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen that feature on Google Photos where you can log in and it's like already categorized all of the people based on their face, right? So that's a great feature actually to have, because it makes it a lot easier to sort through your photos and videos and stuff like that. Like if you're looking for only photos of your dad or only photos of your dog or mom or whatever it may be. But how do you think it got to that point? It's training like AI models on your face, whether you like it or not, kind of thing. But it's because you consented to the platform and uploaded stuff. So it's just like a interesting topic in general of, how much, because you're going to give away more freedom, but you will get better features out of it. But if those features get put into the hands of the wrong people, then it can become problematic. Like with the Face ID stuff, right? If a crazy government comes into power, and then we have technology now to track people very easily by face, that's kind of dangerous. So it's an interesting, just like philosophical, ethical, whatever, moral topic to explore in general, and something to consider. So really good video. Um, that's all I got basically. Just I'd love to hear back more on the Windows specific stuff that I'm not as well versed in. But that's all I got. Check out Prime Pete and branch off Bush. Peace.